Hey again everyone, thanks for coming back to the channel and checking out my second racing video. So after about a month off from racing here in the DMV, we're back this past weekend with what's the second to last race in the Mabra 2024 race series. So that's Backyard Boogie that we're at here today. So while we take a first lap of the course here, I'll go ahead and give some time here just to talk through kind of the layout of the course, talk about who's here racing, and what some of my goals were for today. So first, the course. This was the first year that the course was transitioned to right here at the Washington Commanders football stadium. So what looked like on paper was going to be a pretty straightforward oval parking lot crit definitely ended up being a lot more dynamic and exciting racing than I was expecting. And really the biggest factor that contributed to this was the elevation profile, where you'll see as we go through this first lap here, the backstretch ended up being an uphill headwind, which created some opportunities for splits and breaks to happen throughout the race. And then on the flip side, the finishing straight, I would definitely say was the fastest finish I've ever seen, where we had this downhill tailwind, which despite some sketchy tarmac in the middle, was definitely pretty smoking at the finish. So that's the course, and now let's talk about who's here. I think it ended up being around 50 starters or so, and then the main teams to watch out for today, that's Meta and then Total, who each brought around 7 or 8 guys to the race today. And then of course there's also a number of other strong solo riders in the field who I'll be kind of keying off of. So the goal for the day was just to stay close enough to the front to respond when anything went that looked dangerous enough to warrant expending some effort in getting up there, just kind of based on the rider composition. And as we'll see in a bit, this kind of worked out pretty well today. So, also should note, right around now is when I realized that I thought I was being so cool having an ice sock ready to go and setting that up at the car for today, since it was a hot day and we were on the black tarmac here. And this is where I realized that while I had that, I had also forgotten to take off my bike pump and saddlebag for the day. So probably at least minus 20 watts just for the nerd factor alone there, but let's go ahead and jump into the race here. Jumping back into the race here about 15 minutes in, and a couple of people have gone off the front here or there. There's been a little bit of representation by some of the big teams, but also I know that some of the other big, strong riders like Gavin, who's right here in front of me in the red UMD kit, weren't up there, and also the people who were up there from those teams weren't necessarily their biggest hitters. So still kind of sitting in until this point when I see an attack going off the front with Frank from Meta closely following it, as well as some Total riders, both following it and kind of blocking up the front. So I'm starting to think this might be one of the moves that could be getting a big enough gap to start to make it a little bit more threatening. So instead of waiting to see if anyone responds, I go ahead and put a little bit of power down here to try to get a bit of a gap on the field. I think I pull at least one behind me in my wheel here, and it actually turns out kind of the whole field ended up filtering in to the point where I just brought the field back to this group, but I think it was worth it. It was a bit threatening, and it also, I think, doing this effort brought the field back to being a little bit more tired, making it more likely that the next time that something like this happens, the move will go. So we'll be jumping forward another 4 or 5 minutes here to when that does happen. So we've moved forward about 2-3 laps here. And in those 2-3 laps, it's been fast. There's been a couple of breaks, small groups that have gone, but nothing that's been that dangerous. They've been brought back. But I do know now that it's been fast and hard long enough that something's probably going to go soon. And sure enough, the front widens out, and then Taylor comes here on my inside along with Zach from Total as well on his wheel. And I know that's going to be dangerous. So I jump onto Zach's wheel, and then on the way through, I see Frank from Meta on the front, and I'm hoping that he'll jump on my wheel as well so that we can have representation from both of the big teams. I'll be in there, and then we are about to pull in the one final rider who had been kind of dangling off the front here. So At this point, we've got 4 of us. We've got, I think, at this point, around a 5-second gap or so, but we also have team representation on the front, slowing things down from some of the guys who are up here. So going into the downhill, Zach takes a look back, I take a look back, we see that we have a gap, and we start to roll things. So I've been sitting in Zach's wheel for a bit here, and now I come to the front and get things moving. From this point, the 4 of us roll this break for another 2 laps. Pretty evenly. I think it was a little bit dysfunctional, and I actually talked to Frank from Meta after the race about this, and he had been sick this week and missed a couple of days of training, so he wasn't feeling his best. But we get to a point here where after 2 laps out on the front, we are slowing down a bit, and that actually lets Taylor from Total bridge across to us, which I think I turned the camera around here. We'll see Taylor come through. And he immediately comes to the front and takes a pole here, which was definitely much appreciated. And we end up rolling for a little bit longer with Taylor until he gets dropped from making that bridge and then coming straight through and pulling. And then another Total guy, Michael and Gavin, who I talked about before, end up making the bridge up to us. So we end up with 6 in the break. These 6 in the break now, so that's myself, there's Gavin, the solo rider from UMD, there's Frank from Meta, and then we have 2 from Total, Zach and Michael, and then 1 from Equip. So moving forward, probably another 15 minutes or so here, we hit the 1 preem lap, or at least the 1 preem that I heard of the race, $100 preem here. And we've been working pretty well together up to this point. I think we kind of had it established that the break was going to be the move of the day. We had plenty of time, although I never heard time called from the side, but pretty easy to peek back and see that the field wasn't that close. But with the preem lap going now, I'm actually pretty happy with my position here, and that if the rotation stays the exact same, I'll pretty much be hitting the front right as we're coming to that fast downhill. And I'm pretty confident that as long as I'm putting down the power like I want to, no one will be able to come around me. However, in racing, things don't always end up the way that you would want them to. So obviously, other people are starting to think about this $100 preem coming up here, and people start to kind of flick elbows, flick people through. Gavin takes a short little pull on the front here and flick me through a little earlier than I expected, but I was going to just keep on the power, assuming that no one would come around. Although right here we can see that Total does come around with Zach on the front, Michael in his wheel, Frank kind of following through, but he lets me slot in here. And I do start to wonder what's their plan. And sure enough, I peek outside of Michael here and I see he just dropped the wheel to let Zach go and get this $100, which I wasn't going to let happen. So I start to put the power down, try to get a little bit aero. I look back and I see Michael coming as well. So I put the power back down and secure the $100, which I think is maybe my first preem that I've gotten, at least in a USAC sanctioned race. So that was pretty cool for the day. I mean, I'd like to continue on and get the win at this point, but at least I wouldn't be going home with some money. So after this kind of attack through for the preem, Gavin comes over the top here, I think trying to split the group, knowing that there would be some tired legs in the field, which it turns out there were. The 1 rider from Equip, I think at this point is when he gets dropped. So for the remainder of the race, it's just us 5 fighting for the win. We've jumped forward another couple of laps here, and we finally reached the point where we've caught the main field, or at least we'll say the second half of the main field. We'll see a bit later. There's, I don't know, we'll say 20 riders here, and then another 20 riders who are in kind of a chase group between this pack and us. But we come around, the 5 of us, we come around this field here, and going forward here a bit, we are on the front, but we kind of start to sit up. And I think all of us are a bit cooked, but of course, The one person who is never cooked, Michael here, decides this is as good a time as any to get arrow and attack down this hill. And all of us kind of look at each other until Gavin comes around here to the front and starts to put the chase on. So I hop into his wheel and we're chasing Michael here. And at this point, I didn't really realize how big of a danger it was. I figured there's the four of us, we'll catch him eventually. Until I kind of look up the road here as we go around this turn into the uphill and see that he has a teammate right there who had fallen back from the chase pack. And I kind of start to panic here. I sprint around Gavin, and I know that if Michael gets to this guy's wheel and I'm not in his wheel, that's race over. And I'm able to just barely get up to Michael's wheel, but at this point, I mean, my heart rate's been pretty high the entire race just with the heat, but I'm definitely starting to feel pretty cooked right here. I'm kind of in the pain dangle sort of area where I'm not really in the draft, and regardless of that, once I get there, Michael doesn't exactly give a great draft, but we've reached that first group now, and the total rider pulling Michael goes around the group. We all follow, and on this downhill, I don't really know what I was thinking. I mean, my heart rate's up to 180, which is pretty close to my max. I mean, I think I get up to maybe 185 on a hard indoor training ride, but I wasn't exactly thinking clearly at this point, and I kind of just let him slowly ride away from me, although it wasn't due to not trying, although I guess I'm doing 0 watts here, but this was definitely the big mistake of the race, was not staying glued to the wheel there. And the total rider finishes his pull in front of Michael here. He's had a rest and he takes off, and we never see him again. So, mistakes of letting Michael go in the past. We are now coming into 1 lap to go. The field has kind of all come together, so there's probably 20, 25 riders remaining here. Total has got on the front, and they're controlling and keeping things fast for their other rider, Zach, who was up in the break. So we're all now sprinting for P2, and then since we lapped the field, the rest of the field is also kind of sprinting for their, I guess, which would be now P6. So everyone wants to be in the perfect spot right on the end of the train, on the end of Zach's wheel, which is where me and Gavin are here now, bumping elbows and shoulders, fighting for that wheel, because we know, especially with this fast downhill finish, that's the place to be. We've got Frank from Meta also coming around here fighting for that wheel. We've got Taylor also fighting for that wheel, falling back kind of as a sweeper position. So I'm kind of back in the washing machine here. Definitely wasting a bit more energy than I would want to, spiking up here 600-700 watts on this uphill, trying to fight my way back through to get on Zach's wheel. Although at this point I have kind of consigned myself to, I'm not going to get up there, but probably a second best place is on Frank's wheel here, especially with this fast downhill finish. Frank's definitely a strong aero guy on the finishes here, so definitely not a far second from being in the best position. So I'll just let things play out here, and we'll see how the sprint goes. And sure enough, I was right in that Gavin's spot right on the train of Total with a lap to go. That was the prime position to be in. So Gavin ends up taking P2 there, and I end up with third, but definitely not a bad day out on the bike, racing again for the first time in a month, taking home $100 preem, getting the third place, getting some more points in the Mabra standings, which will conclude this coming weekend with the Chocolate City Criterium. So I hope to see you next week when I post that video.